Hello, thank you for tuning in. You're tuned in to The Encourager. My name is Nehru, and happy morning to you, Saturday, or whenever you happen to listen to this. Wherever you find yourself, I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much to the subscribers, returning listeners, and new listeners. Thank you very much for tuning in. The purpose of the channel is to be that, an encouragement for us to become our highest, purest, truest selves, and we do that a number of different ways. Life helps us with that by throwing stuff at us every day, whether that's things that we view as stress, things that we do view as favor, things we view as a curse, or things we view as generosity or whatever, right? Hate, love. Life does that a number of different ways. Generally speaking, the basic way to put that is life does it by giving to us and by taking away from us. Okay, life does that. Whether it's something or someone, life, that's life's job, is to be a teacher to us. Okay, so as I've said before, I'm going to be speaking on societal norms, okay? And so for me, when I think about societal norms, I think how I clash with certain societal norms, okay? And I encourage you to go through this self-evaluation process as well. And you might find that there are things that you didn't even know that you were breaking a societal norm in, as far as your actions and your choices, but you might be breaking a societal norm. I also relate these to generational norms. And so things that my father did, I do, and things that my mother did, I do. I can gladly say today that for the most part, other than doing number one or two, eating, sleeping, talking, thinking, those are probably the only four things that I do in common that the people I call my mother and father, or called my mother and father, do. Outside of that, I don't do anything like they do. I don't think the way that they do. I don't function the way that they do. I don't believe the way that they do. I don't probably even eat the way that they do, right? I had a burger yesterday for the very first time. I made it. And it's been months since I've had red meat. Months since I've had red meat. Okay. And so, maybe October was the last time I had red meat or something. And so it's been a long time. So, they probably eat red meat almost every day, probably. I know they used to, because those weren't things they were paying attention to, at least not the last time I talked to. Well, it's been 20 something years since I talked to the sperm donor. And then with Judy, I don't talk to her. So it's been months since I've talked to her. The last I talked to her, I sent her condolences for her eldest sister, who passed on October 22nd. So that was the last time I spoke. Now it was a text message. So I do very little today that they did, right? Now, early on in my adult life, I was trying to do everything that Kevin was doing. Everything, right? Because he was exactly who I thought I wanted to be like, right? Because I grew up, and again, he was Michael Jordan and Jackson all in one to me growing up in the 80s. Okay? And whatever he was doing, I wanted to do it. I always say if he was a pooper scooper, I would want to go around with him and scoop the poop, right? I would want to do that because no one was greater than him. Not even MJ in the 80s was greater than him, right? And so that was how I saw my dad. And in some way, I think it's good if kids see their parents as a type of hero in that regard. That obviously can get convoluted, right? And it can turn into a codependency thing. It can turn into a pleasing thing. It can turn into just a karmic situation when those things are not not managed properly. And that's for anything. Anything can start out beautiful and turn karmic. Remember that. Anything. So the relationship that was meant to be, the job that was meant to be, it can all turn karmic because people have free will. And this is the importance of never becoming attached to anything. And I had to learn this. Okay, this is the importance of not becoming attached to anything. So let's talk about some other societal norms. I talked about relationship. Okay, so let's just start there. So in relationships, society says, if you are single at this age, this age, this age, you don't have kids by this age, this age, this age, then you're strange, you're weird, right? And I'm going to use an example that, yes, we don't live to be, I don't recall how long Abraham's wife lived to be, Sarah, I don't remember. But, yeah, sure, I'm not talking about having a baby at 90, like she did, right? And so, yet at the same time, you know, my grandmother, Odessa, Kevin's mother, she had my aunt 9 months before I was born. She was 48. And that was in the 70s, right? So, and no, yes, I'm sure it wasn't planned, right? Because their youngest son, Emmett, was, he was several years old. I'm sure they had planned on stopping, I'm sure. So, but thus the father saw fit to bless them with another child, okay? He gives life to that. And so societal norm says, if you're not in a relationship by this time, if you're not at this certain level in your life at this time, right, then there's something wrong with you. And so people feel awkward about going out to dinner with themselves. I had to get used to that. And I did that years ago. I got over that hurdle years ago. But before my second marriage. But I had to, right? Because for one, I certainly didn't feel like I needed to depend on a woman in order to go out and enjoy a meal, okay, or to go to a movie, okay. But society makes us feel like we're weird if we don't have anyone on our side, when in fact, the ones who feel like they need to have someone on their side are really the weirdos and the unstable ones. Those are really the weirdos. Confirmation dog bark. So that's one. Society makes us feel weird when we are single. And I've mentioned that this is my third stint of celibacy. I don't know how long it's going to last. The first two lasted 3 years. I do believe that this one's going to last longer because I am stronger. Okay. And I literally am okay with not being married or to put it frankly, my penis not being in a woman for the rest of my entire life. I am absolutely okay with that. Absolutely okay with that. Because I understand the risks that come along with that. The sacrificing of my sacral chakra, the accepting of theirs, perhaps without full understanding of where their sacral has even been and whether or not it's actually purified and healed, right? So rather than take that risk, I would much rather keep to myself, okay? And I don't feel weird about society. In fact, I might be one of the poster children for breaking societal norms, right? I was never included in my family. You know, they had a reunion in 2008. Everybody was asking about me. The sperm donor wouldn't tell them where I was, right? My grandmother was still living, I believe, at that time, or she had just passed, okay? But aunts, uncles, cousins, they were asking about me, and he would tell them he didn't know. He did know. He just didn't want me around. And that's how it always was with that family, right? Even growing up, we'd walk past their house on the way to school. We had to walk more than a mile from the projects to a school in a different city. They never once offered us a ride. We'd have to walk past my grandparents' house every fucking day. Literally every day on the same street, going to school. No one ever offered us a ride, ever. They barely spoke to us. Okay? So breaking societal norms, and when I say us, I mean me and my brother Matthew. And so breaking societal norms. Let's talk about, so relationships, one. So let's talk about education. Okay. So society teaches us that you need to go to school, 4-year degree, and that's the only way you're going to become independent. Well, the truth of the matter is going to work, going to school, getting a 4-year degree, going to work for someone. First of all, that's never going to make you independent, because the way the tax system's set up today, a W-2 employee, you cannot become independent by being a W-2 employee. So that societal norm, and people are proving it more so today. It's a little more obvious with the internet and everything that you don't need a degree in order to be a millionaire, right? Or billionaire or whatever, right? So, but even before the globalization of the World Wide Web, it still wasn't true. Society or history is full of men and women who had foregone their education, their formal education, and went in the direction of their passion and became successful, and extremely successful, far more successful than they would have been if they had a degree and just went to pick up some job somewhere, right, based on their degree, right? I remember I had a conversation with an attorney, and at one time, she was a client. Her and her firm were a client. I remember I had a conversation with this attorney, and she said, I went to school to get a political science degree before she decided to go back to school to become an attorney. And she said, to become a lawyer. She said, she said, I don't recommend a 4-year school unless it's specifically needed for your occupation. She said it's a waste of money to just go to school for 4 years just to get a degree, because that's what society says you should do. I think that was such a great point she made. Okay, because I know so many people who have 4-year degrees and they're not doing anything with them, but they're 5 and 6 digits in debt with that education, right? I know so many people who did that. And they're not even using the degree today. They're not using the knowledge they gained, none of it. But society, my mom and dad said, you got to go to school and get a degree. Well, mom and dad weren't training you up in the way that you should go. And the real way that scripture is written is train up your child in the ways and wisdoms of the Lord, or God, Yahweh, is the way it's true, originally written. Not the way that they should go, because that's left up to perception. Well, I think they should do this. No, the original scripture states, train your child up in the wisdom and integrity of Yahweh. That's what it says. And because again, their spirit is mature. Their spirit is mature. They have to recognize that. Okay. Parents can help, but parents are typically lazy and religious themselves, so they're not doing it. Okay? So, breaking that societal norm. Okay? Again, how many people in our world, I heard this story the other day about a woman who had this job, and she ended up being let go because of COVID, right? She lost her job due to COVID. She always wanted to open a restaurant. And there's many stories like this. Always wanted to open a restaurant. So guess what? She opened up a burger restaurant, and now she's wildly successful. She went to school for one thing and probably did that for many years, thinking that was the right path to be on, because I don't want to disappoint my parents. Disappoint your parents if it means fulfilling your prophecy. Disappoint your parents. Son and daughter, disappoint your parents. Mother, father, disappoint your whoever, your children, whoever, right? Okay, breaking societal norms. Okay, it's breaking societal norms when your entire bloodline has been religious and you decide to go spiritual. That's breaking societal norms. I can tell you, you're going to be an outcast. I can tell you that already. You probably already know that if you're listening to this. Okay, because humans does not like when man becomes aware of himself. Man meaning man as Most High has created us, man and woman, right? Unisex, right? They don't like that. Okay, if you decide, fuck church, I'm not going to church every week. I'll go if I feel like it. I don't if I don't, and I don't belong to one. I'm not committed to one. I go wherever Most High leads me and however Most High leads me. That's what I'm going to do, right? You're breaking a societal norm there. Joel Osteen doesn't like that. Creflo Dollar doesn't like that. Steve Parker at the Rock of Central Florida doesn't like that. They want you in those seats every single week. Why? Because, one, they need your money. And two, for some reason, they believe they can't have a church outside of a building. They think they need a building. They think they're trying to be Christ-like, but they keep you confined to a building. You tell me in scripture where, one day I'm going to read, actually I'm probably going to post that today. I'm going to share the other 45 books that were removed from the Bible. I'm just going to post a list of them. I'm just going to read them off. It's 45 books. Okay. So there's at least, I think I said 114 the other day, but that's 111. So the 66 that man did give us, which have been raped by man, by the Roman Catholic Church and others who have attempted to translate, because there are certain letters that are not in the Hebrew alphabet and other languages that the English language has. So the English language replaces certain letters and words and all that sort of thing, right? I use Noah's Ark as an example. Original scripture said it was the ark was made of beaver wood. Well, man says there's no such thing as beaver wood, so we're going to change it to something else, cypress wood, right? So they changed the word in the Bible from beaver wood to cypress wood, when in fact, if it said beaver wood in the beginning, it probably was beaver wood. Hello? Right? So breaking societal norms. Okay? So relationships, education, financially speaking. Okay? So here's the example. And I think I started this example the other day and I didn't finish because that often happens with me. I need to be better at that and keeping track of what I'm sharing and staying on pace, on target. Excuse me, I'm looking for. And so financially, so let's talk about the financial norms. So this is what the financial norm, at least here in America, this is what that looks like. The societal norm, right? The husband and wife, they leave the house that they overfinanced, getting into cars that they paid too much for because they bought brand new, and so they got hit with depreciation as soon as they drove it off the curb. It dropped 20%, so it's makeup. That's what a vehicle is, and I like nice cars. I've had 20 of them, 29 of them or something, right? I like nice cars, but I've only bought one new, and that was a truck, and that was in 1994, and I'll probably never buy another new vehicle, okay? It'll always be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. It'll always be that, right? Low mileage vehicles, it'll always be that. Why? Because I understand the value in buying something that is, and like a vehicle that depreciates in value, buying something at a discounted rate because it's not going to appreciate. Okay? All right? And so this is what that looks like. Leaving the house overfinanced, driving the two vehicles that are hit with depreciation. So you bought two vehicles brand new, 40% depreciation. You have literally almost lost half the value of those vehicles. You financed them for 7 years. So you have a child the month after you get the car. You buy the vehicles. By the time you pay that vehicle off, that child is now going into the, what would you be going into at the age of 7 or 8? 3rd grade? Right? So when you're looking at these things, right, you're like, damn, I financed a car that long? Yes, 72 months, 84 months. Like, really? Yes, people do that. Okay. And so then they go to the job where they're not making enough. They're undervalued. They stop at the gas station to put gas in the car that they're overpaying for, on a credit card that they're overextended on. This is the societal norm of the financial side. Okay. That is what that looks like. Okay. When in truth, if they had taken that $8,000 that they put down on that car, right? The truth is they could have found something of quality that was a couple of years old, well taken care of. They really could have, right? And certainly did not have to buy something brand new, right? Even if that $8,000 was used as a down payment for something that was pre-owned, right? So that's what that looks like for most. One of the friends, I'll probably never be in the category of holding on to vehicles for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. Probably not, unless it's like a truck or something, right? Some type of utility vehicle. But a regular car, generally speaking, I get a car for a reason, because I like it for certain reasons. And then once I'm done with it, then I'm getting rid of it. And that's part of the reason why I tend to buy pre-owned vehicles and older vehicles, because I know my nature. So, right. So I was talking to a friend the other day, and we've known each other since we were when we were teenagers. And she told me that she just purchased her second car. Or maybe her third, no more than her third, maybe her second. The car that she just got rid of, which I think she told me was a Volkswagen Beetle, is she had for 20 years or something. I'm like, wow. I said, holding on to a car for 20 years, that's discipline. That's what I call that. That's discipline. And so getting out of that, okay, is getting out of that societal norm, right? So you might have signed a 30-year mortgage, right? But you're on a plan to pay it off in 15 years. Okay. Save yourself literally hundreds of thousands of dollars because of compound interest, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay. And then from there, you hold on to the vehicle that you get, and you hold on to it and get the good use out of it, right? Well beyond the 10, 15 years past the time that you've made that last payment. Okay. And so when it's all said and done, it's like a good pair of shoes. You throw them out, I've gotten I only paid $45 for you, but boy, I got good use out of those. You know what I mean? I tend to be a flip-flop kind of guy. This is why I'm not prone to living in northern states or states where it tends to be cold, or at least they have strong winters, right? I'm a flip-flop guy generally. And so that's a societal norm that can be broken. So the way that I grew up looking at finances was from a poverty standpoint. She could make $1 last for 36 days. Okay. But she did not have the self-motivation or confidence to pursue greater. So on one hand, she was good at managing what she had and making it last, but she had no motivation to grow that. She's always in a poverty mindset. And even today, where she lives today, she pays $199 a month at a senior living facility. She couldn't wait to get in there, right? She was paying $600 and something a month for rent at the house she was in. She was in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. Okay? And so instead of saying, I'm going to go make more money in order to get what I want, or I'm going to improve myself to get what I want, whatever that may be. And for some, that might be some type of education, whether it's a certification or something else, right? She's always talked about getting a teacher certification. She still hasn't done that. She's on her own, has been on her own for I don't know how many years with all of her time to herself. But she hasn't done that because she has a poverty mindset. Okay? So, again, good with managing what she had financially with 3 kids on food stamps, living in the projects of Joliet, Illinois. But she never got out of that mindset. Okay? On the other hand, Kevin was the polar opposite. Okay? Again, he was a polygamist, so he had a lot of money coming in. A lot of money, because he didn't go to work. The women went to work and they gave him his money. Or their money, excuse me. Okay? So he would sit at home on his throne, right? And just collect the money. But what he would do, instead of being faithful to the women that were bringing him the money and treating them right, he wouldn't do that, right? He would take himself out. And then eventually when he married Janet Lucille Lucas, right, in the 90s, then they would go out. So they would collect the women's money and then they would go out. Buy motorcycles, buy boats, buy houses. I don't know if he ever bought any. Maybe he only rented. I don't know. That sounds like he would only rent. Yeah, right? He once told me, or actually he said in church, he said, if I get $20, he actually said this, if I get $20 and the electricity bill is $15, but I want to go to the movies, he said, I'm going to go to the movies. That's what he said. So that's how he saw finances. So it was for his thrill and his enjoyment only. He wasn't meant to be responsible with the finances and the money that came into him, right? Between having 9 to 11 women at any one given, 8 to 11 women at any one given time for 30 something years, he could have built a multi-billion-dollar business with the brains in that house. But he chose not to. He chose to be selfish. So he would take us to Payless, thrift stores, secondhand stores, Salvation Army, right? And he took the women there too, other than the one he was married to or the one considered the queen, right? Him and her, they got new stuff. So they got the $3,000 suits, $800 gators, right? Nice cars that only a select few, and when I say a select few, could drive. I have driven 2 of his vehicles in my life. I drove when we were coming from Illinois. He had a 80, we moved in 1991. He had an 80, maybe an 85, 6 Cadillac Fleetwood, Brougham. And I drove that part way, and I'm sure in part he did it to terrify me because we were going through the mountains, right? And so he was like, let him drive, when we stopped at one point in time, right? And so Christina, who was in the car with me, yeah, right? And she was one of the few women that he would let drive. By the way, I'm going to say this name because this name is being brought to my attention. I dated this woman and it's not a rabbit trail, it's just it's a turnabout, I guess. I don't know. So I dated this woman last year. No, 2022. I dated this woman. Her name is Jennifer Willis. Okay. She's a pediatric doctor in Orlando, Florida. Jennifer, I hope that you're on the right side of this. Okay. I really, really do. Because if you're not, karma's kicking you in the ass too. Okay? All right. So he would not take responsibility for the money that was being given to him. Because again, he thought it was all for fun. So for me, thank you, dog. Breaking the societal norm means this. One, being responsible for the finances that come into my hands. Okay, so yes, I've had motorcycles. I've had 5 of them. Okay, and early on when I had them, I had one when I was a teenager. In fact, I had a motorcycle before I had a car. The first one I paid for was paid for with cash. Right? It was like $650. I was working part-time at the Altamont movie theater because I was still in high school. I was a junior in high school. And so I would give him like how much ever, $50, $75, $100, whatever, from my paycheck every time I got paid. Right? And this guy lived in our neighborhood at the time in Castleberry, Florida. And then the second motorcycle I financed, which Kevin and Janet helped me get, actually. I traded in the first one. The second one I financed on my own. And then the third one, maybe it's been 4 motorcycles, not 5. Yeah, maybe 4. Then the other one I got after I got back from a deployment when I was stationed at Fort Stewart in Georgia. I financed that motorcycle, paid it off, right, and brought it to Florida. Okay, and ended up selling it in Florida. Okay, the last motorcycle I paid outright cash from a private seller. Okay, and so me now having the understanding I do about the tax system and the benefits of being a business owner as opposed to being a W-2 employee, W-2 employees, I had this conversation yesterday with a gentleman who called me about tax services and that sort of thing. He's a 1099 NEC. He's never been a 1099. He's wondering what can he write off? How can he go about it? I encouraged him to get some type of online accounting software like QuickBooks Online because my bookkeeping rate is $84 an hour. So if you want me to do the bookkeeping for your last year's expenses and revenue, it's going to cost you $84 an hour. He's like, ooh, well, let me look into that software. So today we have these types of tools to help us keep better track of these things. Okay. But he is green when it comes to understanding his benefits as a business owner, because as a 1099, you may be only under your social security number with that company because maybe they don't want to pay taxes because that's what their issue, or insurance, right? He's a driver. He's a truck driver. So if they don't want to pay payroll taxes or insurance, they may offer you to be a contract employee, right? If you have questions about that, my email address is theencourager333@gmail. It's tax season. If you have questions, I'll open myself up to your tax questions. Okay. But understanding the tax code, I can better manage my revenue, my expenses as a business owner. And again, even if it's not a full-time business owner, everybody should have some type of side hustle, again, because of the way that the American system set up, tax system set up. There is no real benefit, true benefit for a W-2 employee. All right? One making $70,000 on a W-2 is going to get far less back than someone who is making $70,000 and they are self-employed. Okay? They both can have 2 kids and they both can be married. Okay, so that's four dependents on the tax return. Right? So even if you make it all even there, because that business owner or independent contractor is going to have write-offs that's going to lower their tax deductions, or tax liability. That W-2 employee, their only out is that they pay estimated tax payments. That's the only way they're going to get ahead, or they change their W-4 to have more deducted from their paycheck. That's it. Okay? A W-2 employee can write off nothing anymore. Nothing. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act changed that Trump signed in 2017. The only ones can write off moving expenses now are military, active duty military personnel. The only ones who can write off moving expenses. So if you relocate for a job, you can't write that off, no matter how far you move. It used to be 50 miles or more. Now it's nothing. You can't write it off, period. You can move across the country. It doesn't matter. Okay? So more and more, the tax code is squeezing out the employee. So if you don't have a side hustle, please get a side hustle. Okay? Just saying, right? That will help you break a societal norm of time to make the donuts, because you feel you are owned by that company from the time you wake up to the time you go back to sleep. And typically they own you even during your sleep because because it's stressing you out, right? Because you're not making what you're worth. You don't feel valued. They're stressing you out. Your supervisor, your coworkers, right? Whoever, right? Get yourself a side hustle. Okay? Again, help yourself out. Okay? So, these are 3 societal norms, okay, that you and I should be looking at and saying, what are the societal norms that we have fallen into that we really truly have embraced and we need to release, we need to let go of? What are those societal norms? Is it being religious when you're drawn to being spiritual, but you're afraid to be spiritual because of what people might think? Is it you being afraid to leave that job that really is a just over broke because they control how much you make? Even if you're on commission, they control how much you make. Okay? Yes, they do. All right? Because they give you a percentage. They control how much you make. Okay? And so, is it the education system, right? Is it that system, right? Are you in your 8th year of school of higher education because your mother and father told you needed to be a doctor, but your heart really is to be a musician, to be a singer? Break the societal norm and go out there and bless us with your music. Bless us with your throat chakra. Bless us with your voice, your lyrics, your movements, your sound. Okay, bless us with that. The world, right? Because that's healing for someone. Yes, being a doctor can be healing for someone too. But if that's not where you're meant to be, that's not where your heart is, why are you going into debt? Your parents aren't going to pay that off. You are going to have to pay the Department of Education. You are going to have to pay whoever's the education thing. I don't know who that is. I was going to say Fannie, but I think that's housing. I don't know. I don't know. But whoever that is, right? You will be responsible for that debt. I posted 4 types of debt the other day. Okay. And so, again, consider societal norms, those that you have fallen into, right? And congratulate yourself for the ones that you have broken, the things that you have broken, those societal norms, because you chose to be who you really truly are, and you're not afraid. I'm not afraid to be myself, right? Say that. I'm not afraid to be myself. Around anyone, I'm not afraid to be myself. Okay? Thank you so much for tuning in. You have been tuned into The Encourager. My name is Nehru. And again, wherever you find yourself today listening to this message, always do a self-evaluation and see where you are. All of this information that I share is information, downloads that help me. Again, I am a mighty, mighty powerful being, but I am not a perfect man, and I never will be. Okay? Because as fast as I am running and ascending, okay, my physical consciousness has to keep up with that. Okay? And so sometimes I need to slow down spiritually so that the flesh part of me can catch up to that. Okay? And so don't be afraid to step outside and outside of societal norms and break those chains, okay, that are really truly binding you. Thank you so much again. As always, be encouraged.